I've had 2 abortions, each for different reasons, but each leaving its mark in ways I didn't expect. The second one was especially painful, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. It's hard to explain, but it felt like a breaking point in my life. A moment that shifted everything I thought I knew about myself, my choices, and my future. I was working as an escort at the time, trying to make a living in the only way I knew how. It wasn't glamorous or ideal, but it was what I could manage. I had regular clients, some who treated me decently, and others who saw me as nothing more than an object. But this one man, a married client, I had seen a few times before. I had gotten used to his patterns, his mannerisms. It wasn't that I liked him, but there was a sense of routine when he came around. I thought I knew him, but that day was different. It started like it always did, with small talk and the same practiced smiles. But somewhere in the middle of it all, he crossed a line. He stealthed me, something I had never imagined would happen to me. I felt so violated, in a way I hadn't even prepared myself for. The world kind of slowed down in that moment, and all I could feel was this deep sense of betrayal. He was a married man with a wife, a child, a life outside of our encounters. And yet he had taken away my control, my right to say no, to choose. I wanted to hurt him, to ruin his life the way he'd ruined mine. I wanted to expose him, let everyone see who he really was. But in my heart, I knew it wouldn't heal anything. It wouldn't fix what had been broken. It wasn't just the assault that stung. It was the realization that I had once again lost control over my own body, my own life. The power dynamics of my work had always been complicated. But that day, it felt like I was nothing more than an object to be used and discarded. Later that day, I got the keys to my very first apartment. I had worked so hard for this moment, hoping it would be the fresh start I needed, a place of my own, where I could finally feel safe and independent. But when I looked at those keys, all I felt was the weight of everything else. This pregnancy, the trauma, the feelings of anger and confusion swirling in my chest. The excitement of the apartment was drowned by the shock of what had just happened to me. I couldn't breathe. I took the test that night. The lines turned positive almost immediately, and my heart sank. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to keep the pregnancy, to believe that I could make it work. But I knew in my gut that it wasn't the right time. Not for me. Not in the situation I was in. It wasn't just about the assault. It was about the life I had built so far and the life I wanted to have. And I knew I couldn't bring a child into that kind of chaos. The decision to have the abortion wasn't easy, and it brought back everything I had felt during my first abortion. After that first one, I swore to myself that I would never go through it again. I told myself I wouldn't put myself in that position, that I would be more careful, more in control. But here I was again, feeling as if I had no choice but to make the same decision. That second time was harder. The first one had felt like an immediate choice, a decision made out of necessity. But this time, I felt like I had failed somehow, like I wasn't strong enough to overcome the circumstances I found myself in. I felt the weight of the judgment I imagined people would place on me, the judgment I placed on myself. I tried to talk to friends, to reach out, but I felt so alone, so far from anyone who could understand what I was going through. But through that dark time, something began to shift. I realized I couldn't continue to blame myself for every choice, every outcome. I couldn't keep punishing myself for the things that had happened to me, for the things I couldn't control. That realization was a long time coming, but it was the start of something. Slowly, I began to rebuild. I made the decision to stop escorting. It wasn't easy, and honestly, there were moments when I missed it. The rush of control, the feeling of power in a world where I often felt powerless. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the life I was meant to lead. I knew I had to break free from the patterns that had kept me stuck for so long. Since then, I've been focusing on my healing. I've started therapy, and I've been learning to forgive myself for things I never thought I could. I've learned that I'm stronger than I realized, that I'm worthy of more than what I allowed myself to settle for. I'm creating a life that's more in alignment with who I am, with what I want, and with what I deserve. It's been a journey, harder than I ever could have imagined, but one that's taught me the most important lessons about resilience, self-worth, and the power to move forward even when it feels impossible.